How is life in the Czech Republic? I don't really like this kind of general questions because obviously life in the Czech Republic is different for a white person and black person, for a man or for a woman, for younger people, for older people, for different professions. So it's kind of difficult to answer a question like that, but I will do my best. I made a list of pros and cons, so the advantages, disadvantages, the pluses, minuses, and I will go through that with you now, and hopefully that will give you an idea of where are you moving to, or if you're thinking about that, where you would be potentially moving. And guys, let me know in the comments if you share my opinion or if you would like to add something else, if you see it differently, because obviously I'm Czech, so my opinion might be a bit biased, and you might have different thoughts about that as well. So let me know. So in my opinion, the biggest advantage of living in the Czech Republic is that we have a super handsome president at the moment. Not the previous one, but the current one for sure. So like big thumbs up for him. But now a bit more serious note. So let's start with the pros. Definitely one big pro, one big advantage of living in the Czech Republic is the safety. I did another video about like the crime statistics, but generally nothing really happens in the Czech Republic in terms of crime, serious crime. So the chances that you will get murdered, that there will be any terrorist attack, or that there will be like any shooting or anything like that, they're very, very low. So if you move to the Czech Republic, then from this perspective of like safety or like everyday life, if you just go out and you need to go back home. Now I'm shooting this video and it's after midnight. It's midnight 15 minutes, so like 12:15 in the morning. So I'll be going back home through the city at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not afraid at all. You know, and even if I was a girl, because many girls go through the city in Prague at night and nothing really happens. Of course, I'm not saying it cannot happen, but it's not like something you would expect, because Prague is just generally a safe city. So that's one very important thing for me. Another thing that is kind of related to that is that we don't really have anything like any other dangerous things. So we don't have any like tornadoes, we don't have any earthquakes, we don't have any like big natural disasters, nothing like that. We have, from time to time, we do have floods and like small tornadoes somewhere in Moravia, like once a year, like where they destroy like a couple trees. So this is another thing. Like also in terms of animals, dangerous animals, we don't have any like poisonous like spiders, or we have one poisonous snake, which if it bites you, you have like 3 days to get to the hospital, and very likely you will still survive if you're like a healthy adult. Other than that, like no other, like we have wolves, but like maybe 3 in the whole Czech Republic, and they usually like hide. So like from this perspective, nothing to be worried about either. Disadvantage, I will get to some advantages later, but disadvantage in my opinion at this moment is like a rental situation, or like generally living housing situation, because now if you move here and you want to rent a flat, it's like super expensive, and it's also very difficult to find something. Because people usually spend, when we were starting with the business, with Daria, moved to Prague 11 years ago, we usually, when we were working with someone to find them accommodation, we usually told them book a hotel room or Airbnb. Back then, probably Airbnb, not really, but like hostel or like hotel or something for 2 to 3 days, and we will for sure find you something. And we were able to show people like 10 apartments in those 2-3 days, and it was super easy to get one. Now it's completely the other way around. Now we usually recommend people 2 to 3 weeks in a hotel, and they still cannot be really picky, and like they really need to like go to see flats, and yeah, not really be picky. So now the situation is completely different. Now if you're if you're looking for a flat, you are competing with like 50 or 100 other people, so it's very competitive and very difficult to get something, which also drives the prices crazy high. So that's a big disadvantage now, and it's kind of similar for the big cities. Maybe might be different in like smaller villages or smaller cities, but I would say that generally renting in smaller cities is generally difficult. But this is, in my opinion, currently the biggest disadvantage. Great advantage on the other side, healthcare. Some people might not agree with me, some people might argue with me about this, but I think that the Czech healthcare generally is amazing. First of all, the cost of it. If you're a freelancer, it's like 3,000 crowns a month, and you basically get treated for free. Everything is for free, whatever happens, whatever type of sickness or multiple sicknesses you get, from diabetes to cancer to broken limbs, everything will be treated for free, or for these like 3,000 crowns a month. So that's amazing. Adult, like kids, and retired people even have it for free. The state pays it for them, so that's amazing. Another kind of what people usually complain about in terms of healthcare is the availability, and sometimes also like the approach of doctors, because yeah, the quality of doctors in terms of like customer approach is not always good. And for some specializations, you need to wait for a very long time. So if you, for example, want to get your like knee fixed, you might need to wait for a couple months to get to one like good specialist. So there are disadvantages, or like not that really good things about this, but generally the healthcare is one of the best things about the Czech Republic, in my opinion. Another good thing, which kind of goes back to what I was talking about before, is nature. We have so much of amazing, like, but even cities, we have like hundreds of castles and chateaus, and like small cities which were built like in medieval times, in like 1400s or 1600s or whatever. We have plenty of like old factories and all this kind of stuff. We have wonderful mountains, lakes. We have everything, like, of course, small, because the Czech Republic is not that big, but we have like beaches, we have like deserts here, we have national parks, we have like wild rivers, wild in Czech terms, but like from the nature perspective, that's amazing. There were also 2 movies made about that. One about like life in Prague, like animal life in Prague, and one about the Czech Republic, and that's amazing movie. So guys, check it out as well. So that's for me also like a very important and like very great advantage. Disadvantages. Something related to my standard topics or standard like theme of the channel. Visa-wise, it's not really an easy country to move to. If you're an EU citizen, obviously everything is easy, because EU citizens have exactly the same rights as Czech citizens. On the other hand, if you're a non-EU citizen, depending on the country you're from and depending on the purpose of your stay in the Czech Republic, it might be very difficult for you to even get here. If you already get here and you just need to extend your visas or stuff, then that's pretty straightforward usually. But to get here, to like pass the first barrier, might be pretty difficult, because Czech Republic is generally pretty close from this perspective. And that actually brings me to another disadvantage, and that is that, let me see if the mic is still working, because in one of the previous videos the battery ran out and there was no audio from the middle of the video. So like now it works, that's good. Yeah, so what was the other disadvantage? Yeah, that if you, like, generally Czech people are still kind of conservative, and we are not that used to like foreigners moving here, or we're not maybe that open to them. Of course, Prague is different, maybe Brno is different as well, but then smaller cities, people might not speak English much there. Because if you live in Prague, then like you see English all around you, you hear English all around you. But if you live in Kolín, for example, where there are like 5 foreigners in total, you don't really hear it, you don't really use it. And if you don't use it, then you forget it. And then if you forget it, then you don't feel comfortable with speaking it. So yeah, just this is disadvantage. On one hand, on the other hand, it usually forces people to learn Czech faster. People living in Prague, generally, if I should generalize, they don't have the motivation to learn Czech because in Prague you can easily live with just English. But in smaller cities and villages especially, you would not survive without Czech. So it might actually be an advantage for someone who really wants to learn Czech for whatever reason. One also, people will hate me for that, I believe, but I think that kind of the food is a disadvantage of the Czech Republic, because I've changed my eating habits, but that's not really related to that. Before that, I enjoyed the cuisine, the Czech cuisine, all these ducks with dumplings and goulash with dumplings and dumplings with dumplings and ducks with ducks. It tastes great. Especially if you go to a good restaurant or you have a mom who can cook or grandma who can cook, those, taste-wise, it's amazing. The Czech cuisine is really, really tasty. On the other hand, it's very heavy. Full of fat, full of meat. Basically, Czechs eat meat couple times a day. So for breakfast you have eggs plus some ham or sausages or just bread with ham and cheese on it. Then for lunch you have something meaty for sure if it's Czech cuisine. So you have some goulash or something like that. And for evening, maybe for dinner, you might have something different, but usually also you just bake some piece of meat. So it's very, very meaty, very heavy, and also that's one of the reasons why Czech citizens have the highest level of bowel cancer, or however it's called, just cancer in your stomach. That's because of all the how it's called, sausages and all this kind of hams and everything we eat. So that would be, in my opinion, a disadvantage. Of course, again, if you live in Prague or Brno or maybe some of the other bigger cities, there are plenty of restaurants to choose from, all the different cuisines, from Indian to Mexican to Chinese to Vietnamese to Italian to French to everything. So in bigger cities it might not be that much of a problem because you have choice. But if you live in a smaller city where there are 2 restaurants or 3 restaurants or something and they are all Czech, not that much of a choice, especially for people who come from countries which are more naturally vegetarian, for example. Then it might be very difficult to find something and survive well in the Czech Republic, in some regions of the Czech Republic. Another advantage, stability of the country, economically, I would say. Of course, last year, 2022, was strange because we had 15%, 16% inflation, so all the prices went up and everything. But in the long-term run, Czech Republic is very safe, from the economics perspective, and generally nothing that much changes or happens that you would really need to be worried. Okay, what will happen tomorrow? Will the currency will be devaluated, or will we end up having euro or not euro? Will we end up having a huge debt, or will the country collapse? Nothing like that. We always complain. That's one thing, maybe a disadvantage, but that's just a characteristics of Czechs. We always complain about everything. Even if there is not really much to complain about, we find something. But generally, the country, the economics, everything, the political situation is pretty stable. And even if it's not, we don't really do anything like in France that we would march in all the cities and fight with the government or whatever. We protest, but it's always there is 10,000 people. and the worst thing that happens is that someone like pushes you, or like, okay, pickpockets maybe, but like no like really fighting or anything dangerous, as I mentioned before, the safety. And so yeah, that's another advantage. And I would also say it's a very special thing, and it can be annoying at times. And it's also like it doesn't apply in all situations, because every person is different and in different situations, all that. But for example, maybe disadvantage, Czechs really don't, they're not used to, or we are not used to going to any like psychologists or psychotherapists or anything like that. So Czechs are not really much aware of themselves, I would say. On the other hand, because they are not aware much of themselves, they are not really aware of other people either. So like if you go to the metro in Prague, for example, and you just go in your like underwear and you put like 3 hats on your head, and like you will be holding a sword, no one will even like look at you. They will be like, okay, whatever, as long as you don't like fight with the sword or something, then people are cool. This kind of approach is also part of the government, let's say. So many things, we have laws, but the laws can be banned based on like common sense. You know, if you see that the law just doesn't make sense in this concrete situation, you can somehow make it work anyway. So I think this might be actually one of the still the biggest advantages, that Czech citizens have common sense. So we have rules, we have laws, but if they don't make sense, if they're stupid, we don't kind of follow them. So that's something I like. Yeah, and that's about it, I guess. So guys, let me know in the comments what you think, if you have the same opinion, or if you've never been to the Czech Republic and you're just thinking about it, if you think this sounds like a good country to move to or not, or if it complies with what you've seen online or what you've seen in other videos or like articles you read, or what your friends tell you. Let me know. Let's talk about this. It will be amazing for me to hear what you think. So guys, thank you very much, and see you again next time. So Monday and then Thursday, Monday, Thursday, until the end of the world. Bye bye. Good night.